Welcome to another episode of Remap Radio. I'm your host, Rob Zachney, and this is episode 115 for October 24th, 2025. Today we are joined by Janet Garcia.
Hello.
I give it a year. And Patrick Klepek.
Wow.
Till she finishes Silk Song? I feel like she's on a better track than that.
That could also be.
What do you count as finishing? Because I know I'll be looking at credits. I heard about what's in that Act 3 thing, and that doesn't sound like fun to me.
I feel like we had a very productive conversation about that at your wedding, in which we all agreed if you get to the end of Act 2, you have completed the game. You can walk away. You'll have done your job.
Great. I still have to do that, but I'm working on it. Every day's a battle, because they put a lot of battles in the game. It's a mean little game. We'll get into that later.
One battle after another is both a Oscar-winning, a film next March, and also the battle
Description of most video games, to be honest. As always, we're a listener and reader-supported show and website. If you enjoy Remap Radio and wish to become a supporter, you can learn more at remapradio.com/signup, or just click the orange button in the upper right corner of the website. Our subscribers let us keep doing the shows, the streams, and the articles that define Remap. Let's get into today's topic. So last week we talked a little bit about the fact that Sam Altman is ready to flip the horny switch on AI, which provides us a good moment to see where things are at with AI outside the purely horny realm. So I think one of the things that was really eye-catching was week and a half ago. I'm not in this scene too much, but like, people who really do follow what is happening in the Doom community were quite astir about this. That there was a great schism that apparently has been quite a long time coming in the GZDoom community.
Yeah, if you have not, even if you don't actively play Doom, you have enjoyed the consequences of like Doom modding. Like, it has been like deeply rewarding for the video game community as a whole, and one of those is, well, in software, open sourcing their engines, and then what the community does with that. And one of the big success stories there is ZDoom. And I thought, we're gonna kind of bounce between a couple of different stories here, sort of related to sort of the moment of AI that we're in, and the different ways creators and developers are thinking about it, or how it might end up, or already is ending up in the games that we play or choose to play, as the case increasingly may be, depending on disclosures. And yeah, GZDoom, the lead developer on that, disclosed that they inserted some code that was made by ChatGPT, and that caused an enormous amount of discussion and pushback, not because necessarily it messed up the engine, but seemed to go against the general philosophy of what a lot of people wanted from a community-based open source collaboration tool that has led to Doom remaining relevant decades after its original release. And there is now another split from GZDoom. I lost the name of the new split. ZDoom is the new fork, as they call it. In the open source community, you can have sort of the base, and then there are different forks based on different developers. GZDoom has been one of the more popular forks, and there are still games made on GZDoom. Like, if you played, I don't know how to pronounce it, Silico? It's a very popular, great looking kind of boomer shooter that you can find on Steam, and that game was built in GZDoom. It does not look like a game from the early 90s. It looks very, very modern because of the updates that have happened. So, I think this is one of those situations where communities are going to land on this in different ways, and how they handle what happens after that, I think, is going to be, this is the first of like many, many schisms that I expect to happen as people fall into different philosophical camps. Even less so than workflow camps, but just like sort of philosophically, what is the future? What have I decided to be? And I think there's a vast difference between, wholly generative AI workflows that feel like you're just stealing other people's art and shorthanding some redundant code that you don't want to do yourself. But I think how that lands for different communities is going to be, and is, a very open question.
Well, the other thing I find interesting about this is, in some ways, it's kind of a microcosm of who the people are who want to use AI and the types of people that are drawn to it as a tool. Because part of this is we don't want to use AI. The other part of it is one guy decides, so I just inserted a bunch of AI code into a collaborative project. You're welcome. And that kind of gives the game away, which is that a lot of the people who are drawn to AI, they like the idea of just, vibe coding whatever is their whim of the day and not have to deal with the friction of dealing with other people, not having to rely on other people, and not letting other people sort of have a chance to contribute or decide the direction of something. So in some ways also the high-handedness of this, which does seem to be the real reason for the schism. This sort of feels like it was a last straw type moment, but the entire fact that the person running GZDoom was the type of person to be like, all right, new update just rolled out, here's what I did, without any chance of being able to blindside that community that way. That seems like it was the last straw, but the fact that also what that person chose to do at that moment was jam AI code into the project is also, well, of course they did. This is exactly the sort of person who looks at AI as a solution to their problems, which seem to be working and sharing with others.
Right. And I think, it's actually sort of remarkable that a mod like this has managed to stay as a collaborative fork this long. Like, most things think they continue to fork and split apart because, these are relationships, right? Like, and that stuff breaks up and people go in different directions. So the fact that GZDoom has more or less been able to be something that has been a collaborative community effort for as long as it has is remarkable in and of itself. But I think it does speak to the moment in this very specific degree in which it'd be one thing if this core maintainer of the project announced, I think we should have a conversation about whether AI code can be injected into GZDoom. Is there a place for, hey, like there are really boring parts of coding that LLMs can make more efficient and easier to do. Do we draw the line on all of it? Do we draw the line on, hey, I've developed this code, publish it, verify it before it goes in a similar sort of like kind of Q&A loop? And like that just didn't happen here. And increasingly, the scarier part is if that is sort of something, a philosophy that you have and you want to have in your project, here there was, they were able to uncover evidence and the person involved admitted what happened. Sort of increasingly what's going to happen in the future is, sure, we can have AI disclosures on Steam, but that's like a disclosure. And increasingly we're going to head into a world where deciphering evidence, like being able to call out, we're not in the like Will Smith eating spaghetti realm anymore, like increasingly trending toward a world where we're calling out AI. Do you remember that video though?
No.
You don't remember the original Will Smith? Like, this is the original, like, AI's not going to work. I was like Will Smith trying to eat spaghetti, and it looked patently ridiculous. And then
me tapping over from the Arsenic article to Will Smith eating spaghetti. No, go on.
You can find people have like used the new technologies to, the updated ones to show just like sort of how far this goofy exploitative stealing art bullshit has come from.
Oh,
but
wow.
It has.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
Leave. It's quite scary to look at.
But here you have a situation where the community can have a conversation, even if it ends up being a hostile one. What I worry about is in a couple of years, you're participating in communities where you haven't had the philosophical discussion because absent someone admitting that's how they did it, you end up participating in a project like that unwillingly because there's no way to run an AI detector through it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, in this instance, though, wasn't it that the person who did it just like had it in their code snippet? Like they wrote, like they kind of admitted to it in it, like rather than it was discovered.
They
like just from the Ars Technica write up on it that they wrote in the code thing.
They eventually, they were called out on it, and then there was evidence found in it that they were.
And they kind of post did that commenting system on code write ups, which I every day I learn one tiny detail of what coding is because that's Isaiah's job. And I'm like, what is? I'm like, okay, yeah. I mean, I think we're already there. I don't know how much we are there for, projects like this where people are very much like living in the code in a very like deep way, like beyond, what they might do for, I don't know, just like a job, where I feel like something like this, where it's obviously like for fun, for optional, for the community, people are probably more inclined to be more passionate than maybe, a 9 to 5, and thus maybe more attentive to sussing out those differences. But like, I think we're already in that reality. I forget if I had this conversation yet on here, but like certainly from like looking at this and thinking it for larger implications in gaming, like I personally like don't want to play games that like implement AI. Like I don't fuck with AI. I'm not with AI. So like I'd like to avoid games that use AI. And sometimes that's very obvious because it's like a big part of the game. Like there's a dating sim game. I forget who it's made by, so I don't want to misspeak. But the Pick Me game is very much like, this is an AI game. We're saying it's an AI game. Funnily enough, they didn't say that when they signed up for previews at PAX, but that's another story. but that game's out and about and has existed for a while now and is very like forward with, hey, this is just AI. But most games aren't doing that. I think we go back to like the alter situation and that being kind of a like, oh, like you're kind of caught. Like usually people get caught from like front-facing assets where it's like, oh, we see this and we clock that AI had to have done this, or like, why is this way? And then it gets revealed that it's AI. But like the reality is probably every game I've played has AI somewhere in the code base. Even if maybe as a team they say, hey, we're not doing that, because are you combing through every single instance? Like there's so many people that have hands in the code base, like from a, I forgot what, outside firms coming in and things like that too. Not to say that like, oh, it's someone else that did it, which I think is also what tends to happen in these scandals. They're like, who did this? Oh my gosh, it was Dave, who we like barely even like. So, well, who cares, kind of thing. But yeah, like I think we're already kind of there.
Right. And like, so for example, Simon Carlos's excellent Game Discover Co. newsletter noted in their write-up about Steam Next Fest, a quote from here. The latest newsletter. How about AI usage in NextFest demos? As TechRaptor noted, the exact total of games disclosing generative AI was 507 games out of 2,960 titles in Stream NextFest, about 17%. TechRaptor sampled usage for 100 games and found marketing/Steam store assets at the top, followed by in-game art assets and audio assets. When Chia and I do the Steam Next Fest streams where we use my Stream Press account to like sort through the new releases category on Steam and try and play games that very obviously are like unlikely. We've never heard of them. They're not getting any marketing push. It's like, but there is cool stuff in here that's just constantly kind of washing through a place like Steam on a daily basis. Once Valve added the Steam disclosure form, which again is it's not like Valve is like running an AI detector through your executable. Like this is something that is being disclosed. I don't know what the consequences are if you like don't disclose it. We've had developers like you just mentioned, Janet, where it's sort of discovered after the fact. They admit to it, and I think they add the disclosure or change the asset later. But I'd say like more often than not, when Chia and I look at the AI disclosures. So like usually when we're looking at these games, we see the screenshot, the trailer description, and then right before we download it to add it to the queue of games to possibly check out, you have to scroll all the way bottom because the AI disclosure is like all the way at the bottom. And I'd say most commonly it's for like the store, what they call like the hero image, like the main like sort of logo graphic that you're going to see. That's what they used it for. They don't use it to sort of, at least based on the disclosure, if you're trusting that, it is sort of used for this low-hanging fruit element of getting this game out the door relative to an entire game based around it. Or there was one instance where it was a little more forward where it was it's like a spot the difference game, and you're going through this museum, and I think we forgot to look at the AI. We forgot to look through the AI disclosures, or maybe they didn't disclose it. I don't know what the case was. But eventually we looked at the art long enough to be like, oh, there were some of those telltale sort of signs to the extent that stuff still exists as it increasingly sort of gets stamped out of these technologies. But that is increasingly going to be, I think, found throughout a lot of Steam games, especially stuff that is probably produced by smaller studios. And in the high end, you have Arc Raiders, which is is that an extraction shooter? I don't exactly. I don't.
Yeah,
but it's,
broadly.
I think it's an extraction game. They're out here very publicly saying that they are hiring human voice actors and then using what they've recorded to combine with AI to generate new lines. They're using they're generating gun noises, gun sounds, gunshots through AI as well. And they're openly talking about the fact that has become part of their workflow. That game has been so far like a huge hit. And I think what you have is an instance in which, and I feel like a little complicated about this, in which I sort of suspect the larger public, one, isn't even broadly aware that this stuff is being used. And if they were aware, I'm not sure that it rises to the level of them caring or like using that as that goes beyond my ethics and morals. I don't want to play this game anymore. And then Chia and I are out here being like, well, if we noticed that you used in your hero image AI to produce that art, well, we're not going to play your game. And it's like, shit. So these like big AAA games are going to get by on the indifference of the mainstream. And then I'm instituting policies where like I won't highlight a smaller game that uses it because I wish nobody used it. I'm not saying that isn't necessarily where I want to land. And I'm not trying to like invent excuses to not use that as a reason to check something out or highlight it. But I do think it sort of underscores sort of the complicated spot that we find ourselves in, where this stuff is going to integrate into mass development and mass culture. It'd be increasingly difficult to know whether you're participating in something that sort of crosses that for you. And then the people who are honest about it then get sort of punished, which, I don't know. It's just a weird spot to be in as I was thinking through some of this week.
Yeah. There's also like a lot of, obviously like in the case of Arc Raiders, like that seems like that's something that, is known maybe even like pre-release of the game.
Yes.
As like a marketing beat, right? Where it's like, okay, well, you can go in and be like already informed, but something like, again, rethrowing the auteurs under the bus because they had their like issue with like AI implementation for one of the translations, and I think some like an asset that was like an optional film to watch the movie in the game. Something like that got learned after the fact. So then it's like, well, what do you do, whether it's from like a player perspective or like a coverage perspective? It's like, do you suddenly like stop covering it or talking about it? Do you like not finish it? Like, it's like, oh, well, maybe, and it kind of becomes like almost like, I don't know if we talked during the recording or if it was before recording about like when food goes bad, like what do you do with it? Like the fruit and stuff. It's like, oh, well, this one's fun. Like I'll eat around it. I'll eat around the AI because it's like, well, if it's so, small, like maybe this, at what percentage does it become?
Well, this is the conversation
and then how do you like manage that?
If we want to extend this analogy a little bit further, it is if I remember we had this. I can't remember if it was on recording or not. But with bread, if I find mold, the whole thing's done. Like I'm taking the bread, the whole package is thrown out. Like we are not engaging with this once I found mold in it. And then with fruit, like one moldy strawberry at the corner of the box does not suggest you should throw out the entire box of strawberries. It just means maybe one's molded and you got to check the others before you eat. And I do think that's a fairly decent way of trying to wrap your head around what does it mean to engage with these works based on incomplete information about how they were produced. And then if they do talk about how they were produced, what do you do with that information? I think, one version of that is just, well, if you disclose it, then I know. And then you can make an informed decision. And many other people might not, but also, recycling might not heal the planet because corporations are the ones that actually change their policies in mass. But I still recycle the cans and the plastic in the house because it feels good and makes me feel good. And as an individual act, even if it doesn't change the world. And I do think there's a bit of, we're headed to maybe a similar direction in terms of use of AI.
So the Arc Raiders stuff, I was looking up. Rock Paper Shotgun has a pretty good piece about what they've said around their use of AI, and it's kind of hard to pin down exactly what they mean that they are doing and how they're implementing it.
Is this another what is AI? And we're
yes, like this is so Edwin Evans Thirlwell points out like what they're describing is it doesn't sound like Arc Raiders is going on like it's like, hey, can Sora do something for us real quick?
Sora make a video game?
Yeah. But they are talking about proprietary tools that we don't know exactly what they are using or what they're doing, but that are like leveraging some AI capacities. We don't know what that means. And here's the other problem. Studio executives actually have incentives to make it sound like they're using AI more than they are.
Right.
Like this is because like one of the things that really has pushed AI is that Wall Street loves it. Money people love it because AI means you're forward thinking. It means you're going to be focused on keeping labor costs down. So this is why so many companies were like, we're an AI company now. I've brought this up before, but I swear to God, it was like Taco Bell at one point said we're an AI company.
Hold on. I'm trying to find. Starbucks just did this. Yeah. Let me just search for Starbucks.
Yeah.
All these like Starbucks. Starbucks. How AI-powered automated counting is brewing a better experience at Starbucks. Like, shut the fuck.
Right. And everyone knows this is fake. The people at these companies probably broadly know this is fake, but it became important to show that you were not resisting AI, but were embracing it. So, not that like I'm not saying we should necessarily extend a huge benefit of the doubt, but do understand that the bullshit goes both ways. That people are bullshitting about we definitely want to have artisans create everything, and meanwhile people are happily like pulling shit out of AI generators all the time. But also, like the door swings the other way, where it is, oh yeah, no, we totally love to leverage AI and its powerful transformative capacities, and we are definitely using it. And what they might mean is we're using some sort of proc gen thing, or something like that. And it's hard to pin down because there are incentives to sort of overstate the degree to which you're relying on AI. The other thing that is adjacent to this is when we are talking about tools, like what do we mean when we talk about like what AI is up to, how is it operating? Like when we talk about some of this boilerplate repetitive code type work, this is stuff that it's very close to just copy pasting code that's been written thousands and thousands of times before. You are just sort of quickly slapping it into something that will be having a different function. It saves you having to customize this really routine piece of code. I don't know anything about this. I don't know how dangerous that is from the perspective of people who have to manage code and make sure everything is done to a high standard. I can imagine that one thing that's scary about AI written code is that tracking down where errors might crop up, if there's extensive use of AI for that, could make that process harder. But
here's an example. The Square Enix has talked openly about the fact that they used AI for lip syncing while developing Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Right.
Their argument is like, this is rudimentary and boring, and our time could be spent elsewhere building this big, beautiful game. And that is like an internal tool that they made in order to like improve efficiencies in like in lip sync for like thousands of NPCs.
Arc Raiders, it looks like I think it's Arc Raiders. They talked about using AI for animation assistance. Similar type of thing where there's always some procedural generation in animation. Then there's also the sort of like the more bespoke like keyframing and things like that. So when we're saying that we're having AI do it, how different is that from other methods that have been used to allow characters to be animated without someone having to come in and keyframe every single step of a motion? The other thing, and this is AI in some capacity, or these sort of LLM models and some aspects of these generative AIs are they are going to be with us for a while. The battle lines are really, one is, how much do we allow them to basically profit by all the stuff that was stolen to enable them to make what they are capable of making. And then there's the question of how do we retain its function as a tool that can help people just skip over shitty parts of their own job versus a tool that is aimed like a gun at the labor force of a lot of industries.
Dude, one of my friends works in management at a company that fully pivoted to AI, and one of the things he is judged against is they record, because they buy like these AI polls in bulk. They know how much each team is doing. And if you don't hit an AI poll quota, they're going to come back to you and ask, why aren't you more strongly integrating AI tools into your workflow? It's not about, are you going faster? Are people happier? Like, are you getting more out of less? Like, it is, you need to hit a number, because in order for the shareholders to be happy, we've spent all this money hoovering up the ability to do these amount of like pull requests on these tools. If your team isn't hitting it, then we're not AI first. And that is that.
And I'll guarantee you, what they've created is a new workflow, bogus pull requests on AI.
Dude, that's what they're starting to notice in different management teams is like, hey, you just need to add this in somehow so that by the end of the day you fit, let's just say 50. I'm inventing it. I'm pulling a number out of my ass. But like, you just need to have a poll happen as a part of it.
It's yet another way for AI to get credit for other people's work. Is there's companies that are like, we're really using AI. It's really boosting productivity. Look at all the projects it's contributing to. And there's a team that's like, okay, so this is done, right? Yep. All right, now could you put like feed the thing like 12 different bum prompts and like pretend we used it? So yeah, no, that is,
it's like with those the keyboard like bird, like like just hitting, like how people were trying to keep themselves awake, or they'd finish their work early in like days of the pandemic and then be done with their job in 4 hours. But like
the drinking bird
is a similar sort of thing. It's like just have it do something so we can say that we did it.
Code-wise, though, as I understand, there are things that it's pretty good at that do save you some real shitty pain in the ass work. Like at one point during our renovation of our condo, MK needed to pull a lot of data out of a lot of different lighting manufacturer websites, because like things are sold through different vendors and it'd be hard to parse through. Like, this is being sold, it's a single product, it's being sold under 12 different names. I need to figure out like what the specs are and figure out what's what. And MK, being the sort of person she is, figured out that a lot of that information is accessible if you know how to like yank it out of these websites. And she wrote a tool that could do it, but she discovered really quickly that there's so many different little websites and so many different ways to interact with them and pull that data. And I think she used ChatGPT and set it a much broader brief, which is, okay, I need this to pull this data from the store pages of all these different websites. And ChatGPT built that like universal like data leech like in a heartbeat to sort of rip all that info out of like a bunch of different lighting and furniture manufacturer websites and dump the info into an Excel sheet. That would have been days of her coding different implementations for this for like different websites, and the ChatGPT was able to do it very, very quickly, and it worked quite well. That's one of the other weird things about this is there are, and I don't understand what it is. There are certain types of
we got to cancel MK. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, for so many reasons.
I mean, when the culture wars come and I have to cancel MK.
But it's
no. Yeah, no, go ahead.
well, but it also is like the AI summaries on Google of a topic frequently pretty good. Like there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, there's actually like clear instructions about something in the AI summary thing. And it's like, but I want to find out like where's the actual like how-to thing. Like let's go to these other links. And son of a bitch, it's hard to find the actual good like the prompt I'm searching for, the thing I'm searching for. It's hard to find the article or something that has the step by step. Like here's what you're doing. Somehow
And
the
who
AI
set
summary
that
is able
system
to
up?
do that. Well, that's true. Like it is possible. Did Google fuck up search so that the AI result is the effective answer to your prompt?
There's a lot of evidence for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many layers to that. I mean, I think, yes, did Google fuck up search? Yes, always yes. The answer is always yes. Because I think literally for all of it, right, where it's like the way search functions, but also the way Google's search functionality is like entire websites like live and die off trying to like guess how to get to top search. I mean, we all know this because we have like that editorial background.
Destroyed the search results, and so the websites
and then
that dominate the top suck.
They got you sick, and then they sold you the cure, Rob. No, scroll down.
Yeah.
But no, like, because I mean, who among us hasn't glanced at an AI? At least seen part of the AI overview. I mean, I know you can do the minus AI to like remove it, but I got to be honest, I'm always just too lazy, and I just manually scroll.
Yep,
that's just how I roll. But the reason I do that manual scroll is because as good as any AI overview might ever look, I know I can never fully trust it. So I have to look at the thing anyway. So then it's like, well, how much time is that saving? I think to your example with like MK in this very specific coding instance. Yeah. I mean, I think, we'd be missing the full picture if we didn't like acknowledge the ways that the implementation can be like beneficial from a work standpoint. Now, obviously there's still like environmental impact that you can never really like weigh productivity against, but I think for the sake of this discussion, we're always kind of just putting that to the side just for sake of like talking about the tool itself, because I think we can all agree that the earth is burning. But on that note, like a number of weeks ago, for Indie Council, we did like a big AI episode talking about it because like you mentioned, Patrick, like I wouldn't say AI is hitting harder in the indie space, but it hits different and the conversations are like much different about like AI and implementation. So we like did a big episode like unpacking like, hey, here's like what AI is, and like, and obviously we had to do like a bunch of some additional research and looking into things. And in that I've talked a lot to Isaiah because he's a software engineer. So he like is in a field where like that's constantly like a conversation. And I asked like, to what degree is ChatGPT/AI better or worse than just Googling the answer? Because anyone that knows anything about coding or spoke to anyone that does code knows that like a lot of coding is you Google the answer and then you like paste it in there and then you like do, that's kind of been the workflow for many years. Obviously people know things as well, but that's like a big part of like
if you're looking for a discrete solution, like did someone already solve this? Like did someone?
Which you're always looking for that. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, you're kind of, that's like just part of how it goes, right? So I was like, okay, how is it better? And he said that it's just more interactive, so you can have like follow-up questions, but ultimately what it comes down to, which is kind of what we already talked about, which like is it's can be good and it can like speed up your workflow if you also like have the skills to know what you're doing. But if you're not, it's going to just like make you fall into take L's faster essentially. And like he kind of compared it to especially with, my writing background, like if you give an author Google Docs instead of a typewriter, yes, it's obviously faster and it has some automation tools in it, like spell check, things like that. But if you have a writer who's auto-filling all the sentences, you'll have something that looks like an article, but it's not going to be good. And that's kind of where it's at from like, I think a tool implementation standpoint. Again, kind of removing the environmental conversations and also the idea of like the human touch and artistry or whatever. But I think that's also why we're going to be dealing with this for a long time, regardless of how good or bad like the implementation is. Like I think we've seen that there are like, especially in like in the coding world, there are ways that this can be like a useful tool for people. But I think because you have corporations kind of like adding it in as like mandatory workflow, and you also have people that maybe have like a level of moral opposition to AI, and you also have people that are where it's, I think, changing the conversations you end up having like in the software like coding engineering space, where like there will be people who like have conversations about how do we approach a problem. And the evidence they bring to the table is, well, when I asked ChatGPT, it said this. And it's like, why are you asking? Like, we're supposed to be the experts having like a conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that is also going to get tossed into the mix, where for some people that's going to also erode the feelings around AI, where it's like, okay, we can now see some of the pitfalls. So there's always going to be this push and pull, because even within, I think the people who are most set up to be using a tool like this and have it be maybe the most beneficial, more beneficial than Will eating spaghetti. And then now that we don't have,
It's better spaghetti.
winter anymore because he was eating spaghetti. Like, obviously I think that's very cut and dry on like why you shouldn't do that. But the creatives and engineers that are like using these tools, like, can't even necessarily come to like a firm agreement, which I think is what, back to the Ars Technica article, what you're kind of seeing there, where it's like, I'm sure there are some people who really like care and hate that, and some people who don't care at all, and some people that are in the middle. And I think it's I don't think anyone's really fully giving way on either of the sides of it.
Just a quick thing that's interesting, that note about suddenly people are bringing up in technical conversations with subject matter experts that, well, ChatGPT said this. And that is sort of the process. That is partly how descaling is happening, which is that even people who do know the material, these tools are showing up and making them second guess themselves or injecting things that are not helpful into the discussion. Like, this is like there was a study, I think I brought this up before, but like study of radiological images for cancer diagnosis is one of those, like, there's science, but there's also art to it, right? It is a thing where there's a lot of ambiguity in imaging, and it requires a lot of skill and experience, and to a degree intuition, to make the best use of that info. There's also an area where people have been really excited. Well, AI is going to be so good because AI analyzes huge data sets. So like you can train AI to be like an expert interpreter of CT scans, MRIs, etc. And what they found is that it's really not. And maybe that'll improve, but it's not. But they also found that when oncologists were making use of AI tools to analyze radiological imagery, they started doubting their own judgment and started letting themselves be overruled by the machine, because the machine seems very impressive. It has very high confidence in itself, and again, because so much of this is intuition based, if the AI is saying one thing, and even experienced oncologists, their intuition is saying another, well, that's just my gut feeling, but the AI doesn't agree, so whatever. And so the results were that they were making worse evaluations of this data simply by having used the AI, simply having it there as like an assistant. They all became worse oncologists just using it, because suddenly there was a new party in the conversation that has no business being there. It was the AI analyst that doesn't know this stuff, doesn't have intuition. It just has what its data set has trained it to see. But the minute it was introduced, you had experienced oncologists being like, well, shit, I guess I must be wrong because the AI disagrees. And that's another scary component of this too, where you have if you have these technical discussions about building complicated programs and the code required to do that, it gets dicey when suddenly every conversation has to stop and it's like, well, ChatGPT says maybe we should do it this way, and suddenly everyone's thinking, well, maybe we should do it that way. ChatGPT is good at some of this stuff, and the answer may well be no. You all know what you're doing. If this didn't occur to you, there's probably a reason for that, but now we're gonna have to stop and
ChatGPT didn't have to take the technical exam.
Yeah,
they probably would have got cooked on the technical exam.
Well,
but it would have been, fast.
It also presumes that these, there's not just ChatGPT, right? Like, go look at what's happened with Grok on Twitter, right? Like, these are like they're
I
will not. But you know what I mean? Like, we've all seen Grok go, become a Nazi because these are tweakable.
He was raised that way.
He was.
The classic nature versus nurture strikes again.
Well, hang on. In Grok's defense, Grok keeps trying to not be a Nazi.
The episode title.
It's true.
And they keep reprogramming Grok. Grok is ingesting data and starts saying the truth again accidentally. And then they're like, Grok.
Well, because their new line is that it's because of Wikipedia, right? Like, which is why they launched something called Grokipedia, which is essentially how can we like right lean the training set, because so much of they
couldn't just leverage Conservapedia.
Is that a thing?
Oh my god! So yeah, back in the Bush era, conservatives started noticing that Wikipedia had this left leaning bias because leftism is fundamentally based on data and facts and knowing shit, and so Wikipedia does have a left leaning bias because it is grounded in fact and research. So their solution was we need a Wikipedia for conservatives. A Conservapedia. And it's just, of course, extensively plagiarized from Wikipedia. But then also scrubbed of like stuff that's too lefty and inserted things like insert right-wing conspiracy theories into articles to make sure that it's clear that like, oh, well, this topic, we
popular articles at Conservapedia.
Yeah.
Dark matter, vaccine, liberal denial, American Civil War, global warming, free market, counter examples to evolution.
Yeah. And so it was shit like that, but also like really insidious stuff too, where it's like there is a famous Wikipedia, if you want to read about various like industrial disasters or plane crashes, and like Wikipedians love to just provide all the data about that stuff. But there's like, I remember there's one plane crash where it like the issue arose from miscommunications between like pilots of two planes and the tower, etc. And as with all these things, a lot of things are happening that result in a fatal plane crash. Conservapedia's take on that was, well, Wikipedia like is trying to obscure the real reason for the plane crash, which was that the pilots didn't speak good English, and so that's why all those people died. And so that's the sort of thing Conservapedia would do. It's like here's the thing that happened, and oh look, it was multiculturalism's fault. By the way, it was not an English speaking airline. English is the lingua franca of international flight, but this was not a case where English was their first language. So extra silly is that the argument was that a tower and a crew who were speaking identically like accented English couldn't understand each other, because ultimately the thing was about other people not speaking good English being at fault. So that's the sort of thing Conservapedia would do. So I'm not surprised that they are now trying to do a Grokipedia so that it has good fascist facts that it can pull from, so that it can parrot them.
You could just make the argument here that the birth of Conservapedia is just a response to Wikipedia sort of replacing the encyclopedia for broad swaths of the public, and in some ways just becomes a different version of colleges are turning your conservative kids liberal and pointing the finger at college institutions as the source of all our societal and cultural ills, and that they invent and push LLMs, things like ChatGPT, train it on the liberal internet, realize, like that was our original problem. We have to now, if the future of the internet, or as they pitch it, is these devices, these technologies, you can then influence the masses into more right-leaning conservative projects by subtly influencing them into turning these technologies into conservative propaganda based on if ChatGPT is the truth and what it tells you is right-leaning, you sort of subtly start influencing the culture and the public in a really fucking insidious way. I mean, you have, I think it's Anthropic, one of these companies that like essentially got into a spat with the Trump administration this week over like, we're pretty concerned with how much their technology keeps spitting out woke answers. And they had to put out a big press release. It's like, we're not woke. No, our AI is not woke. And they all, pretty much select all of these LLM projects are right-leaning. Like, certainly libertarians have sprinted to the far right in the Trump era. And as like someone with young kids, that's the shit that like scares the hell out of me in the future, is if these technologies become the basis for how a lot of kids are quietly like, they go to school, maybe your school like feels left leaning because of the neighborhood you live in, and that reflects the values of that neighborhood. But like, what do they do when they're on their phone or their computer? And they're typing into ChatGPT, but if ChatGPT is telling them, Bush won, I don't know what to do with that. And that's scary as hell.
It is. I think a lot of Wikipedia editors apparently are already, like, Wikipedia has robust anti-harassment policies in place, but they are very concerned because I think the Heritage Foundation is borderline a terror group headquarters, is how they operate, and one of their projects is trying to find and dox like major Wikipedia editors to find the people who are like inserting left-wing propaganda, and really, of course, what they are doing is they're trying to identify a target list to sort of chase those people out of a shared space like Wikipedia, which would open the door for like the little Nazi buddies to creep in. Because one thing that really frustrates them is, why didn't what worked on mainstream media, why doesn't it work on Wikipedia? Because Wikipedia has processes where it's like, if this can't be verified, then we're not doing it. Whereas all they had to do to completely like nerf American corporate media was whine about like, it doesn't seem like you give fair views to our side of the story, and then you get CBS to be like, oh, okay, well we'll give Bari Weiss like $200 million to run CBS News, so that she can make it good for you, so you'll be happy. Like that. Like, why didn't that work with Wikipedia? Because Wikipedia can't be gamed in the same way that the corporate media was. But yeah, like, I do think partly some of the project with things like Grok is a bit threatened by the fact that the people who are most eager to complain about things being woke are the sorts of people who won't shut up unless Grok will do things like start vomiting out "I am Mecha Hitler," and then they're like, "Good, this is good, right? It's working."
Yeah.
Anyway,
so I don't know.
Game developers. So we have a mod project that sort of has forked because somebody, the person running it, just decided, can use a little AI code, put it in here. Game developers, as we mentioned, have different relationships with AI. So I think we've all been wondering, what's Hideo Kojima gonna do?
Yeah, I think there are two quotes that are worth reading. One is from Nobuo Uematsu, the longtime composer for Final Fantasy. Not these days, went independent years ago, but obviously was responsible for a lot of the great music from those earlier entries. And then obviously Hideo Kojima, who is constantly lauded as a visionary auteur. So there's a quote from Uematsu, thanks to the website Automaton Media. Here's Uematsu. I've never used AI and probably never will. I still think it feels more rewarding to go through the hardships of creating something myself. When you listen to music, the fun is also in discovering the background of the person who created it, right? AI does not have that kind of background, though. Even when it comes to live performances, music produced by people is unstable, and everyone does it in their own unique way. And what makes it sound so satisfying are precisely those fluctuations and imperfections. And then Kojima, in an interview with Wired, said, quote, a lot of people use AI in creative work to come up with ideas. But I think of AI as more of a friend. Since I've been in the digital industry, I would lead the creative part and use AI to boost efficiency. I'd like AI to handle the tedious tasks that would lower costs and cut down on time. It's more like co-creating with AI instead of just using it. I see a future where I stay one step ahead, creating together with AI. I think you see some really interesting different visions of what, and again, all this stuff is very confusing because what are they talking about? Is Kojima talking about, he seems to be very specifically saying here, like, I'm not going to stop like leveraging longtime artist collaborations to create the character designs, but in the example like with Square Enix, but like the lip syncing might get easier if we could just like throw that at it. And part of what Uematsu is saying here is like the kind of grind of doing the mundane parts of, now I don't know what his tools are, like what his process is, but I do think philosophically he's speaking to a little bit of like, well, actually doing some of the more tedious parts of the creative process is inherent to the creative process. And it's not going to shock me if you see a lot of creatives fall in different sort of camps. It's like, I don't like doing this part. Let me stick to what I think is essentially comes down like, what is the creative process? What is your creative process? How do you arrive at your ideas? What are the parts you don't like doing about it? And if you could identify tools that let you get there faster, is that cheapening the process or just a more effective use of that process? And I think Uematsu and Kojima sort of get at, I think will ultimately be like very normie sort of relationships with these technologies that don't necessarily say, like, I don't think Kojima is going to make a Death Stranding 3 based off of a prompt. He doesn't even sound like that's what he wants to do, like, or engage with these technologies. But the idea of like making, could you make your game 10% bigger or faster or cheaper with it? That seems to be where he ends up, and I think that's like the more likely outcome for a lot of companies. And then it becomes a question of really, like, what is the leadership? How do they view how it's used? Is it a way of squeezing 10% more profit, or is it like? I think fundamentally this comes down to a question of something that we've talked about a lot with this is the promise of these tools. The promise of like technology that often exits Silicon Valley is not, we're going to make your life better, right? It's like if these technologies we're going to keep the same staff and we're going to do exactly what we were going to do otherwise, but like you're going to leave an hour earlier, you're going to be with your family, and we're all going to accomplish the same work of art, but just your life is better as a result. Like, that's cool as shit. I don't think that's what we're necessarily getting in most instances. But if you want to look at what Kojima's saying in like the most optimistic version is like, oh, like what if this wasn't as hard, but we still made the thing that we would have made otherwise, and we'd still be really proud of it. Maybe that's me being wildly over optimistic, and I'm mostly just painting a picture of like what could be rather than cynically like what will be.
Well, remember, that guy also has those same incentives to be like, I'm open to all sorts of the latest tech. Like, I think also by disposition, he is probably somebody who's more open to like new approaches, new tech, new novelties that can be integrated as part of the story, but also does probably have that same incentive to position himself as, don't worry, I'm an auteur who's eager to get with the program here. But yeah, like what they mean by AI is left very, very vague. So it's going to be, you can sort of see the effect it is having. I think what it has done in a lot of cases is seed this sense of, and this sort of leads us back to the sort of Steam disclosure thing. It's led to a lot of paranoia and doubt about whether or not what you are seeing offered as someone's creative output is actually their creative output.
Right.
And that is not made simpler by the fact that now a lot of techniques and approaches and tools are being built around some implementation of AI, or are being effectively rebranded as AI. and that makes it even murkier to figure out like what went into this game, what went into this art. And increasingly, the answer to that, used to be straightforward. It was the creative team. Here's who did what, and increasingly that has become an incredibly murky question to try and answer from the